YouTube, it's Mortimer, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I thought I would go ahead and make a video for you guys about depression. And depression is something that affects 1 out of 10 people. So I guarantee you that you know someone right now who suffers from depression. So what is depression? Well, I have the definition right here, so I'm going to go ahead and read that to you guys. The definition of depression. Depression is a state of low mood and aversion to activity that can affect a person's thoughts, behavior, feelings, and sense of well-being. Depressed people can feel sad, anxious, empty, hopeless, worried, helpless, worthless, guilty, irritable, hurt, or restless. They may lose interest in activities that once were pleasurable, experience loss of appetite or overeating, have problems concentrating, remembering details, or making decisions, and may contemplate, attempt, or commit suicide. Insomnia, excessive sleeping, fatigue, loss of energy, or aches and pains, or digestive problems may also be present. This definition of depression, which I got from Wikipedia.com, kind of leads us to believe that depression is more of a mood versus an actual mental problem. If we want to find the definition of depression as an actual health disorder, we have to look up a totally different term. We have to look up major depressive disorder. And this is the definition of major depression disorder. Major depressive disorder, MDD, also known as clinical depression, major depression, unipolar depression, or unipolar disorder, or as a recurrent depression in the case of repeated episodes, is a mental disorder characterized by a pervasive and persistent low mood that is accompanied by low self-esteem and a loss of interest or pleasure in normal, enjoyable activities. The cluster of symptoms, or syndrome, was named, described, and classified as one of the mood disorders in the 1980 edition of the American Psychiatric Association Diagnostic Manual. The term depression is ambiguous and is often used to denote this syndrome, but may refer to other mood disorders or low mood states lacking clinical significance. Major depressive disorder is a disabling condition that adversely affects a person's family, work or school life, sleeping or eating habits, and general health. In the United States, around 3.4% of people with major depressive disorder commit suicide, and up to 60% of people who commit suicide had depression or another mood disorder. So you can kind of get a sense of what depression is from these different definitions, but it doesn't really tell you what it's like to have depression. It's a completely different world, and you can't really explain it. I know that sounds really cliched and, you know, super young of me to say, but depression is something that, you know, once you have it, it can change your entire view of things. So I want to go ahead and I want to share with you guys some statistics of depression, and these statistics are from healthline.com. And the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance website. So these are real statistics, so please take these seriously. Depression affects 1 in 10 Americans at one point or another, but the incidence of depression is actually higher in some states than others. Certain ethnicities also report higher depression rates than others do. So depression can also affect people depending on where they live. And some states are more depressed than others. I tend to find that most states that are actually in the middle of the United States had higher statistics of being depressed. Over 80% of the people that have symptoms of clinical depression are not receiving any specific treatment for their depression. 80% of people who have depression don't want help with it or don't know how to ask for help for it. That is staggering. That's amazing. 80% of people, I mean, if you have depression, please don't be afraid to ask for help. The next statistic I have is the number of patients diagnosed with depression increases by approximately 20% per year. Each year, more people are being depressed. Women have higher rates of depression overall than men, and I believe this to be a hormone issue, or it could also be an issue of how women are treated in the media, and then women are shaming their own bodies and thus hating themselves. 60 to 80% of all depression can be effectively treated with brief and structured forms of psychotherapy and antidepressant medications. 60 to 80% of depression can be treated. That's amazing. That's awesome. That means only like maybe 20% of people, you know, we don't have medication for that will work right now, but that's a huge chunk of people that can be helped. An estimated 121 million people around the world currently suffer from some form of depression. 1 out of 33 children and 1/8 of adolescents have clinical depression. Depression is the cause of over 2 out of 3 of the 30,000 reported suicides in the US each year. 2 out of 3 suicides each year are caused by depression. Depression that we have an 80% cure rate. For every 2 homicides committed in the US, there are 3 suicides. Untreated depression is the #1 risk for suicide among youth. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death in 15 to 24-year-olds and the 24th leading cause of death in 10 to 14-year-olds. Up to 80% of those treated for depression saw an improvement in their symptoms generally within 4 to 6 weeks of beginning treatment, medication, psychotherapy, or attending support groups, or even a combination of all of those. So 80% of people who have some type of mental disorder improve once they start taking some kind of action to help it. Despite its high success rate, 80% of people, nearly 2/3 of people suffering with depression do not actively seek or receive proper treatment. 2/3 of the people who have depression don't seek treatment. I have a form of depression called manic depressive. It is a disorder that's run in my family. My father and my father's side of the family is all manic depressive. And manic depressive has since been renamed bipolar disorder, but that is not to be confused with the condition bipolar. It is not, having multiple personalities. Bipolar disorder is a manic depressive, which means, you go through, extreme lows of depression and then having extreme high manic episodes of being obsessed with something, or like staying up all night cleaning your house just randomly out of the blue, things like that, and then just going right back down to being depressed again. And I've had this since I think around 13 or 14 is when I first started to notice symptoms. And that was when I was in school still, and it was a big deal. I would have these, thoughts that I was, worthless, because how could I have depression when I have so much and there's so many people that have so little? How could I, be sad? And it really tormented me, and I, it was a shame to tell my parents because of this. How could I be sad? It was like a slap in their face, for all that they've done for me. How could I, repay them by being this sad person? And unbeknownst to me, my dad is suffering from the same exact thing. And if I had come to them and told them, that I, had depression, then I know that they would have helped me, and no one would have known how to help me more than them. And I hope that no one else, who sees this video, has to feel that way. At least, if you feel sad, tell your parents, tell your friends, tell your family, and do something about it. You don't have to just sit there and suffer with it, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. The peak of me having to get on treatment for my disorder was actually when I started getting hyperventilation syndrome. And it started off as me just yawning all the time. It was something where I could never catch my breath. If I was nervous about something, or I was in a situation that I didn't like, I just start yawning. And it wasn't me being tired, which a lot of people took it as. It was actually me yawning, trying to catch my breath. And it developed in such a way that it just got worse and worse. And it eventually developed into hyperventilation syndrome, which is me basically hyperventilating, breathing hard, not being able to catch my breath. From anything, from being in a bad situation, from thinking something, was off, to even doing a little bit of, light exercise and just breathing heavy would trigger it, and then I could not catch my breath. And it started affecting my life in such a way that I couldn't even sit in the car, without not being able to breathe. I couldn't even talk in the car. I had to sit and focus on my breathing, so I wouldn't pass out. And, forget the days where I was so depressed and I couldn't even get out of bed, where, I didn't even have the energy to do anything. That should have been, an instinct to have something done, but it wasn't until I had these, hyperventilation syndrome that I actually decided, this is affecting my life in such a way that I need to get help. And I shouldn't have waited as long as I had. I'm 24 now, and I've had this for 10 years. And I just now started medication and treatment for this disorder. I am now taking Sertraline, which is the generic for Zoloft. It is a depression medication. It treats a wide variety of symptoms, and it is amazing. I noticed a difference in my overall mood, and just the way I felt after the very first time taking it, and It's the kind of medication that only takes effect after 4 to 6 weeks, but I felt good after taking it just for the first time because I knew I was doing something about taking it. I was taking control of my situation and I was doing something about it, and that just made me feel a million times better that there was something that I could do and I was doing it, and you know, that I was helping myself. And just that feeling was enough to help me, you know, push forward. And I've been on this medication now for several months, and it has opened a whole new world for me. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner, and I cannot urge you guys enough to go out and get help if you suffer from a mental disorder right now. When I first got the prescription from my doctor, I was actually terrified. I didn't want to take any type of depression medication because I was afraid it would change my mood. There were some people who had told me, you know, that it'll turn you into a robot, you're not gonna have any emotions, you know, you're just gonna be dull when you're on it. And you know, my whole life is around being funny. And you know, I was afraid of losing my livelihood and, you know, losing my friends, and I didn't want to turn into a robot. I didn't want to change who I was as a person. And none of that happened to me. You know, I still get sad, but I don't get as depressed as I was anymore. Like, I can still feel emotion on the medication, but I don't have those days where I'm so depressed I can't get out of bed anymore. I don't have hyperventilation syndrome anymore. I don't have such high anxiety anymore. And I'm so thankful for that. When I left the doctor's office for the first time with my medication slip, she told me, don't tell anyone you're on this medication until you've been on it for a couple months. And I thought that was really weird. She didn't explain it to me in the office, but I later, you know, understood that she told me that because she didn't want me to, you know, turn to one of my friends and be like, oh, my doctor just wrote me a prescription for Zoloft, what do you think? You know, and then instantly be turned off to it by one of my friends saying, oh, I tried that one, it didn't work for me, you know, or I heard about that, it's gonna turn you into a zombie, you know. And it happened. Sure enough, I turned to a family member and told them, hey, I'm starting off on this medication, and instantly they told me, don't do it. You know, I've heard terrible things about that medication, and luckily I trusted my doctor more than I trusted somebody who's not a doctor, and I stayed on the medication, and it has helped me so much, and I'm so glad. And I wish I had listened to my doctor and not told anybody until I've been on it for a while. I felt a lot of shame for a long time. You know, even now I still do a little bit, feeling guilty for having depression. And you know, I'm so lucky. I have so much, you know, working in my favor. You know, I have a great job I love. I have money. I'm not dirt poor. I have a house. I have the love of my life, and I'm healthy. You know, I have, you know, my friends and my family. I have everything, and I am so incredibly lucky. And yet I suffer from this condition, and you know, it bothers me a lot sometimes. You know, how can I don't have the right to be sad when I have all of this around me. How can I be sad? You know, and I'm so glad that I'm, you know, finally coming to terms with it. And you know, I have aged enough to understand that it's not feeling guilty, and it's nothing I should feel guilty about, that this is just something that's in my genetic makeup. It runs in my family, and it's just something that I'm predisposed to, and you know, I'm doing something about it. And you know, 1 out of 10 other people suffers from the same exact thing, so I'm not alone. And I hope that no one else out there feels like they're alone or feels guilty for being depressed, because there's no reason why you should feel guilty for being depressed. You don't have to fit into a mold to have depression. It can affect anybody. It doesn't matter how lucky you are or how great your life is or how terrible your life is. It can affect anyone, and it does. So I asked you guys to tweet me some misconceptions that you've heard about depression, and it was heartbreaking. I could not believe the tweets I was getting from you guys, and it brought me to tears. You know, some of these tweets that people get from their, you know, these things they're told by their own family members when they approach them and tell them that they have a disorder. And I want to bring it to everyone's attention that you don't, you know, these things aren't true, and these are just misconceptions, and they should be treated as such, and you should not feel any less of a human being because you are depressed. So I wanted to share some of these with you guys and go over them. Don't let it make you feel too sad. This should be empowering for you guys to hear these things. So I hope this video doesn't make anyone sad or hurt anyone's feelings. At Cesar Diego tweeted, I had depression, but then I stopped being a baby and got over it. And someone told them that, and that is nuts. How in insulting to tell a person, you know, I was depressed, but then I grew up and got over it. Normal Bear tweeted, all you do is obsess on your problems. @Toon Salad tweeted, but you're better now. And they say after that they think it goes away like a head cold. And people tend to think that yeah, like if you're laughing and smiling that, oh my gosh, your depression is gone, you're all better. And that's totally not the case. You can be depressed and you can be sad at the same time as smiling and laughing and telling jokes. Some of the world's best comedians suffer heavily from depression. And it just goes hand in hand sometimes. Like, it's just a way to cope and a way to make people, you know, feel closer to you, to be able to tell jokes and make people smile because, you know, you can't smile yourself. And that's usually the case with a lot of comedians. Troutfish tweeted that if you suffer from it, it means that you're lazy and mentally weak because you're letting it affect you. @McStallion tweeted that it's something that can be easily cured. @AkiraWay tweeted, contrary to popular belief, depression doesn't always simply mean really, really sad. Sometimes depression is not feeling anything at all, and that's not a misconception, that was just them saying, and it's true that, you know, sometimes being depressed doesn't just mean being sad, it means that you just don't feel anything, you feel like a robot, and that is a symptom of depression. Creepy Cutie tweeted that you're not allowed to smile and have a good day if you're depressed, or that all people with depression self-harm. That is a wild accusation to say that all people with depression self-harm, because that is insane. That's like saying that, you know, all people who go shopping have $1 million in the bank. It's not true. I personally have never self-harmed. It's just a different spectrum of depression. You know, there's not just being depressed. There's, you know, so many different levels and layers, and it's a whole spectrum of depression. You're probably not going to have the same type that your friend has. You know, family members tend to have the same kind of depression, but there's all different kinds. It's not just black and white. There's all different types of depression, and just because one person self-harms and they're sad doesn't mean that everyone does. So don't think that. That is so insulting. @MusCuzera tweeted that just because you can't always see the effects and symptoms, that it's not a real illness. And that is nuts because it's in your head. How are people gonna see any effects? @IsraeliMark tweeted, a misconception I've had is that my depression will go away if I stop thinking about it, and that depression can be reoccurring. Depression can be reoccurring. You can feel like it's gone and then the next month it'll be back again. @Megan Thorst tweeted something along the lines of, there's nothing wrong with your life, you have no reason to be depressed. @Shalabs tweeted, if you ignore it, it'll go away. @Max Loback tweeted, some people think it's just an excuse to receive a pity party, but in reality the person just needs some help. @Lil Doyle tweeted, the best depression medicine is support from family and friends. And I totally do not agree with that. The best medication, you know, for depression would be actually medication or going to a support group or talking to a psychotherapist or a therapist or something. You know, if you're sad, yeah, hanging out with your friends and family is gonna make you better. And, you know, it might help when you're depressed, you know, for a day, but it's not going to cure a chemical imbalance in the brain, you know, and it's kind of sad to think about that someone would say that to you, but these are misconceptions. @Samantha Plessel tweeted that medication can change your personality, and that's what I was told. @Morningstar Hume tweeted that I'm just sad and that I'll get over it. @VNauba tweeted, exercise and eating better will fix everything. @DrummerBoy85 tweeted, it's just a phase. @SmashTaper tweeted, there are people who have it worse. @SphinxKittens tweets, some religious people will have it that depression can be treated just through prayer and that depressed people need to just find God. I have been told this before, and I think it is one of the most insulting things that you can tell a person, that, oh, you're sad? Oh, well, that's just because you need to go to church. On varying degrees it's insulting, not just because I am not religious, but it's, you know, insulting saying that all of the, you know, science and dedication and passion that doctors have to curing depression is just put off because, hey, you weren't going to church enough. And I'm not saying this to insult anybody who has a different religious background than mine, because everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, but personally, That is insulting to be told, and you should never say that to anybody. Don't go around telling people that, you know, God will fix your problems. You know, when my mom was in the hospital dying of cancer, she said that the worst thing that people would tell her would be, I'm praying for you. And sure, that came from a really good place in your heart, but praying for somebody isn't gonna fix anything. It's not gonna suddenly make you wake up and you're like, oh my God, people prayed for me, I feel better today. It doesn't happen like that. And, you know, yeah, that's my personal belief, and everyone's entitled to their own beliefs, but, you know, if I ever get in the hospital sick, guys, do not comment and say, I'll pray for you, Susie, because it's not something that I want to hear. It's like on par with people, you know, telling their doctors like, oh, thank God I am, you know, I'm cured of cancer, you know, and not telling the doctor, thank you, who put all of this dedication and passion into helping them get better, you know, and the science behind it, and just undermining all of that and saying, oh no, God did it. God gave me cancer and then took it away. How magical. And that is just so insulting. I can't even imagine, you know, being a doctor and being told that. So, I don't know. Just be considerate with what you say, I guess. At Sir5000 tweeted, have you tried not being depressed? At the Mixer tweeted that the idea that something bad has to happen to cause you to be depressed. Yeah, so these are some of the responses I got on Twitter. I got so many responses from you guys, just completely tear-jerking, insane, saddening, just terrible responses people have gotten from their own family and friends before, and it's terrible. You know, 1 out of 10 people suffers from depression, and they're being treated like, you know, it's something you'll just get over and it's just a phase, and, you know, why don't you just get out and be more active, it'll make you feel better. Those aren't things that's gonna fix a chemical imbalance in your brain. You know, you actually need to go and seek help and get medication and go see a therapist and do something about it. That's the only way to get over it. And definitely go and be diagnosed. Just don't just go around and say, you know, I have this disorder. You should actually go and be diagnosed, because who knows, maybe you have something that's even worse. You know, there's so many different things out there that come off as weird symptoms, and your body is trying to put up a warning sign for you, and it'll come off in weird ways, and you could have something that's much worse. So please go to your doctor and get checked out if you feel that you have depression. And I hope this video has helped someone out there. I kind of bounced all over the place with it, jumping from, you know, my own stories of depression to misconceptions people have tweeted at me and the actual definitions of depression. But I hope this helps somebody out there. It's kind of a heavy subject, but it's really important to me, and I really wanted to touch on it for you guys for Mental Health Awareness Month. So please think about it. Even if you're not depressed, think about your friends and your family who are, and consider how you would approach them about it. And, you know, just be kind, be nice. And if you have to take a day off, take a day off. There's no reason that you can't and you don't deserve to take a day off if you're sad. Just do it. Life's too short. Help yourself, get help, do what you gotta do. So I will see you guys all later on. And be sure to leave a comment down below if you guys have anything you want to share or add. I'll have some links in the description of other important articles and information for Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'll see you guys all again soon. Bye everyone!